as was already mentioned, I think it's important to mention every time we are on stolen indigenous land, and I want to sort of say that the violent colonial project that made the US, there's a direct line between that and the push to expand US empire and hegemony. I want to start also by emphasizing how important it is for us to be here right now rallying against a possible imperialist war. We desperately need a sustained anti-war movement that can pressure both Republicans and Democrats, which are both committed to the interests of capital and promoting US domination and empire. Our political struggles and social movements must be informed by an understanding of US empire and its devastating effects. In the labor movement, this understanding allows us to move away from a narrow labor nationalism which only considers the issues faced by American workers while accepting their subordination to the US government and so-called national security interests. Rather, we can embrace a sense of internationalism, which recognizes the shared experiences and interests of working people all over the world. Simply put, each one of us here and working class people all over the US have much more in common with the people of Iraq and Iran than we do with the Trumps, the Clintons, and other American political corporate elites, or the bosses that lord over us in our workplaces. This is what the national organization, the US Labor Against the War, is committed to. This is an organization made up of 165 unions, labor councils, federations, and anti-war committees. Wars for US empires serve to divert attention away from movements that can lead to social gains on issues like healthcare, education, infrastructure, employment, while simultaneously dividing workers at home and pitting them against other working class people abroad. Instead, money and resources that could have gone directly to benefit working people goes to line the pockets of political and economic elites and defense contractors like Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman. It also helps corrupt political figures like Trump in their re-election campaigns. We need to recognize that the racism and sexism that underpins imperialist violence abroad animates and motivates the white supremacist patriarchal violence we see at home. As Dr. King identified, the militarism we see abroad relates directly to the poverty and inequality that we see in the US. So we are rallying here to stand firm against the drumbeat to another war and the horrific violence that it would bring to a region that has already faced the devastating effects of US intervention. As working class people, we stand together with one another and with Iraqi and Iranian people. We need to push for US withdrawal and immediate de-escalation, and collectively we can demilitarize our economy and political system. So let's defiantly say no to war with Iran and oppose all forms of US imperialist aggression.
The only person in this crowd who's from Iran, and I'm Kurdish, so I'm from Kurdistan, the Kurdish nation, the Kurdish people, who have been fleeing their homes for a century because of war, because of violence. So I'm all for it. No more wars, no more militarism, no more bombs, no more military-industrial complex selling bombs and making profits at the expense of innocent people, at the expense of working class people. But I want to tell you something. Hug each other in this crowd and cherish this crowd, because where I am coming from, the very person who the person you hate ordered his assassination, I'm talking about Soleimani, that very person has been busy pummeling Syria. Raise your hand if you know what happened in Aleppo. Raise your hand if you know what happened to the children there.
Yes.
So we are not talking about a person who was a force for good in the Middle East. I'm not condoning the assassination or more wars or anything. I just want to tell you that hug each other, because we have a movement in this country which is anti-war. If in my country we had that in Iran, in Tehran, if we had people at least being able to be free on the street to express themselves against war, maybe there were more children in Aleppo playing on the streets, in the backyards, rather than being in graveyards. That's a shame. And the person Qasem Soleimani, who the United States took out, sent to hell, he was the #1 person responsible for propping up Bashar al-Assad, the butcher of Syria. In 2014, 2013, when Syrian revolution still had a lot of hope, there was no fucking Russia there. Russia did not exist, not a single soldier of Russia. It was Qasem Soleimani and his IRGC forces. I was in 2009, I was in Tehran, University of Tehran. I was a student there. I was in dormitory. Guess what? In the morning, when I went to our campus library, there was what on the wall, on the floor? There was what? There was blood. Blood of my fellow classmates who were not criminals. They were just students like me who were against IRGC brutality. They were asking for a fair election, but they were killed. They were thrown out of their windows of the second floor, of the third floor. These are not movies or imaginary things. You can look it up for yourself. This is something I've witnessed with my own eyes. 2 a.m. after we finished the demonstrations, we huddled in our rooms. What we did to stop our rooms from being attacked by plainclothes IRGC, the very colleagues of Soleimani, what we did, we put the fridges, we put the tables behind the doors so our dorm rooms were not being attacked by plainclothes IRGC forces. Those who did not do that, their rooms were attacked and a lot of people lost their lives. Now 2009, I want to tell you about 2019, which I was here in the comfort of this free country that I could speak my mind without somebody with the baton putting on my head. Okay. 2019, how many people were killed in Iran by the very IRGC forces whose outside branch, the foreign branch, the Quds forces, were headed by Qasem Soleimani. The inside forces were killing people without even anybody arresting them for being accountable. At least 300 people killed by International Amnesty Human Rights reports, and the highest reports say maybe over 1,000 people. So I just want to go back to the question that yes, absolutely, no wars. Wars are terrible. If you have, a New Year's event, in Kurdish Iranian New Year, we also have a lot of fire, a lot of celebration, one time, there was this makeshift, really big firework blew off close to me, and I really lost my mind. I couldn't believe it. That was so powerful. Now imagine if bombs go off on top of your roof, if the security we have, it's not gonna be afforded to us, then we're gonna be in big trouble. I also wanna give a nod to protesters in Iraq who protested against corruption in their country, and IRGC and Iranian military forces out of their country, because Iraq has become a colony not only of US imperialism, but also of Iranian expansionism, IRGC colonialism in the Middle East. So when Iraqi people, protesters, were on the streets, what happened to them? A van just stopped by. Imagine if a van stops over there and moaned them to the ground, like basically not even humans. So if we have this freedom, if we have this safety, if we have this anti-war movement, cherish it, keep it, and grow it. And know about the Middle East. Be happy that there was a Middle Eastern person today here who was able to speak, because as Spivak says, the subaltern cannot speak. So as I can speak, I'm no longer really a subaltern, but I'm still a foreigner, an other, and as my passport says, an alien. And as I speak these words, I'm not sure what it's gonna do to my permanent record if I use Snowden's words, but I don't give a fuck about that permanent record. What I give a fuck about is for you to know and be against war, not only waged by the US, but by IRGC, by everybody. And for freedom for children in Aleppo, in Baghdad, in Kurdistan, and everywhere, in Tehran. Thank you. No more militarism, no more bombs, No more military industrial complex selling bombs and making profits.